This video is sponsored by ProtonVPN. If you've ever tried to watch something online only to find out your first choice is limited to Netflix in another country, or maybe you're just tired of your internet service provider tracking everything you do, a VPN can make life so much easier, which is where ProtonVPN comes in. They've got over 13,000 servers in more than 100 countries with high-speed connections that support all the major streaming platforms. You just pick the location, hit connect, and you're in. No fuss, no weird hoops, and no worries. And when it comes to privacy, they're one of the few VPNs that actually delivers. They're based in Switzerland under strong privacy laws, they're fully open source, independently audited, and have a strict no logs policy. And as a bonus, their Net Shield feature blocks ads, trackers, and malware, which is just nice to have by default. And personally, I've been using their paid tier long before they wanted to sponsor the channel. It's been straightforward, convenient, and easy to customize, especially on my phone where I can turn on the VPN with one tap. Their Black Friday deals are live right now, up to 75% off when you visit protonvpn.com/JimmyRobbins. Check it out while the discounts are still running. Thanks to ProtonVPN for helping keep the lights on. Let's get to the video. There should not be this much to say about one person. I mean, every time I've covered Ned Fulmer over the past 3 years, I end the video thinking, finally, I don't have to talk about this loaf of Wonder Bread and a polo ever again. But then he goes and does something to show off the very ego that honestly may have been the source of his unraveling in the first place, bringing us right back to square one.
And as you learn, you morph into a more villainous character.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Now, you probably know how we got here.
I haven't been wearing pants.
Ned Fulmer was one of the 4 then BuzzFeed producers to form the Try Guys, a group dedicated to showcasing various lifestyles and experiences from 4 everyman perspectives.
We're gonna have a Photoshop artist recreate what it would be like if we got plastic surgery.
Today we're riding the steepest roller coaster in California. It's called Hang Time.
Today we're getting our bones professionally cracked.
And while the other 3 founders each leaned into the unique parts of their personalities for their branding.
Look, Zach, I've wanted to say this to you for years. Being bad at things is not a personality trait.
Yeah, I would say like
more than a couple
lifetime supply of fried chicken is how I would like to be valued. Wow. I am worth all the fried chicken you could eat.
I think I'm notoriously the most secretive Try Guy. I like to think of myself as very honest, brutally so, but I also have a lot of things I don't like to share.
Ned instead decided to focus on a particular aspect of his life, being married. Though he didn't settle for being a wife guy, but instead opted to be known as the wife guy to end all wife guys.
My wife. 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 My wife.
And this path quickly became a pretty lucrative one, as the Try Guys would go on to become an independent brand.
We're back, baby, and welcome to our brand new channel.
Start touring.
The Try Guys Legends of the Internet Tour!
And starring in a television show.
It's the No Recipe Road Trip with the Try Guys.
And in Ned's case, he even had personal endeavors that sought to capitalize on this image further alongside his then wife, Ariel.
It's called the Date Night Cookbook. It's recipes for every stage of your relationship. We have a new podcast.
Woo! It's called Baby Steps.
The raw stories of parenting.
But this all came apart in 2022, when photos started to emerge of him seemingly going on dates with an engaged employee of their company.
By now, we're assuming you've seen the Reddit threads and TikToks and tweets and news articles.
Which became a huge story overnight. Because while yes, there are the general ethics of infidelity in dating a subordinate,
as a business owner, a secret boss dates employee relationship is inappropriate in its power dynamics. If that relationship ends badly, it is a wrongful termination lawsuit at best and a sexual misconduct lawsuit at worst. Either one can easily bankrupt the company and put dozens of innocent employees out of a job.
There was also the fact that his image as the wife guy was an integral part of a brand generating millions in revenue. It almost felt like he was defrauding his audience. So, cue his removal.
So on Friday, September 16th, the 3 of us signed written consent of the members of Second Try LLC approving the removal of Ned as a manager and an employee.
Yes, overnight he became radioactive, despite traditional media's best attempts to exonerate him.
This is the battle of our lives.
Bro, Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce. It's gonna be okay.
You can imagine Ned Fulmer watching the video, seeing his former friends solemnly tamping down the freshly laid dirt, all in an effort to mollify an audience of strangers, and realizing that however badly he may have messed up, he was finally free.
This led to him completely vanishing from the internet overnight until 2025.
The idea behind the podcast is to tell stories of other people's challenging times and how they overcame them. Because if there's one thing I noticed is that people really seem to care about the train wreck that I caused.
Would you say that was your rock bottom?
Yes, he decided to come back with a podcast about redemption after hitting rock bottom, and how we should all be just a little more understanding and empathetic.
I really believe in the mission of the Rock Bottom podcast to foster conversations with empathy and curiosity. This show is part of my desire to build a more curious and empathetic world.
You see the irony, you don't need me to point it out, right? Now, I had recently broken down the issue with this branding, but it essentially came down to this. This podcast was a good premise with the wrong host. Because no matter what Ned does, Rock Bottom is going to leave you with a host that uprooted dozens of lives for a fling, sitting across from and relating to people who have experienced things like addiction, mental health struggles, or being victims of some circumstance. It would feel tone deaf no matter how he tried to handle it. But he trucked on and released the first episode with his now ex-wife Ariel to unpack the affair from her perspective.
Well, here we are.
Back
at
again.
it again. Feels weird. Feels a little awkward.
Yeah.
And this interview went viral for loads of reasons, but none of them were positive.
So we could talk directly to her about all of the cheating. It's like podcast therapy or some shit. And it actually makes me think podcasting should straight up be illegal.
Most notably, you had the fact that Ned was speaking in what felt like a very clinical way, giving the impression that he wanted to avoid confronting his role in these events.
All of that guilt and shame, you hoisted that on me. You gave that to me. And now I have to carry that around for the rest of my life.
I don't think it's fair that as a society, you're put in that position. It's certainly not true.
And while predictably his podcast has kept going to little success, that's not where Ned Fulmer's story has ended. No. In just a couple of months, he has added a lot to talk about. And so for hopefully the last time, I want to go through the absolute insane branding decisions he's been making and ultimately why I think Ned is not capable of a career in media going forward, despite having the experience, skill set, and even talent to find a place easily. And unsurprisingly, it all comes down to ego. Though that's getting a bit ahead of myself. Because while Ned presented the podcast as the main pillar for his content going forward, it turns out his plans go beyond that. I mean, he still has almost a decade of experience producing non-fiction, personality-driven content, which has only become more lucrative on YouTube.
How much do some of Costco's most expensive groceries actually cost?
Let's talk about that.
So it shouldn't be surprising that he's deciding to lean onto that experience in a way that is new, fresh, original, and I'm probably going to regret this sentence, aren't I?
Hey guys, welcome to my new channel.
Each week, we'll be dropping videos that focus on curiosity, empathy, and comedy. Learning about different jobs and hobbies.
Oh, hi.
Can't make this up. His big idea to come back onto YouTube is to explore different facets of the world by making attempts at them for the first time. So, I mean, I guess you'd say he's a guy trying. Try Todd or give it a go guy, something like that could go really well in a t-shirt, right? Nah, I don't see it. There's nothing there.
Is this the greatest idea of all time?
But yes, 2 channels in total are now being repurposed for his comeback. The channel that once hosted his and Ariel's parenting podcast will now be the home of Rock Bottom, while his personal channel, can't make this up, will become a variety channel with the focus of putting him into unfamiliar situations, like riding in a fighter jet and trying professional wrestling with occasional breaks for food-based content. Which first, Ned? This isn't helping the whole, you had no ability to build something on your own, you were just in the right place at the right time narrative, but more importantly, really? I mean, first, even in the best of circumstances, suddenly overhauling a channel like this is usually a terrible move because that big subscriber number was built with people who liked your previous content. So their lack of interest in sudden videos that are radically different can signal to YouTube that your videos suck, leaving them dead on arrival. We saw this with channels like Jojo Siwa and to an extent SourceFed Nerd. Not to mention how difficult it is these days to build a variety channel from the ground up in an age where YouTube tends to favor more consistent videos in 1 or 2 formats. Just look at the Try Guys channel, which still has wildly varying views, or Smosh Pit, who took years to find their place as a variety channel.
So they wanted a show of every genre on one YouTube channel.
Or every personality. That's
and every
kind of
personality.
What I was thinking.
You were kind of right, but that's stretched this channel apart, and it was all so different that it wasn't getting good views because it wasn't like a consistent place. And it was like, what do you come to this channel for?
But also, really? I mean, if you asked me to list 1,000 things that Ned might do next, I really don't think I could have predicted this, which makes me really glad I analyzed things in hindsight. And while it might seem like there's not much to say that isn't just making fun of him, there is so much to why this was a bad idea from a content strategy perspective that it's kind of incredible considering Ned was specifically meant to be the adult data-driven try guy.
I don't know if the other guys can talk so much about what goes into starting a company. First, you have to come up with a company name and a corporate structure and a ownership situation. So then you got your payroll, you got your health insurance, you got your 401k. Those are kind of general benefits stacked for employees, make people feel happy, satisfied. Obviously, you got to get good snacks as well.
Now, my video on Rock Bottom basically had the thesis that there wasn't a viable audience for Ned anymore since he scorned the left-leaning female demographic that previously found him so endearing.
Our primary demographic, though, that I guess just percentage-wise is like college-aged women.
But otherwise seems too progressive to attract a right-wing audience.
I'm voting for Joe Biden because I believe everyone deserves access to affordable health care. Black lives matter.
Now, yes, there's probably someone more clever than me who can plan out the strategy that proves me wrong, but it ain't gonna be Ned. But why not? Surely I'm doing the YouTuber thing and I'm overselling so you keep watching and subscribe. Except I'm not. Though you can still subscribe if you want, it actually helps out a lot. Anyway, first, there's competition. For any YouTuber, your primary competition is going to come from those making very similar content to yours, the ones sharing a niche. And the problem with the whole guy trying niche is, you can't directly compete with the try guys. You just can't, at least without taking some big creative swings that immediately differentiates yourself. Because it is such a hyper-specific niche that they have cornered, which is usually why it's better for creators to pursue a hyper-specific niche. While lacking mass appeal means you'll never be the top guy on YouTube, it's more than possible to play your cards right and find the people whom your content most strongly appeals to and build a devoted following there.
We have created Game Theory, gaming's tangential learning experience.
Well, Weboverse, here we are today, 3,000 videos of tangential learning later.
Whereas trying to have mass appeal is essentially making YouTube even more of a lottery, since your channel is lacking a hook and there's no shortage of interesting personalities to compete with.
Let me make something great for you! Not you.
But in this case, the niche is so hyper-specific that, like, it's not like we're talking about the difference between Game Theory, Scott the Woz, and Nakey Jakey in the gaming essay niche.
Is Mario communist?
This game blows.
The Last of Us Part 2 is the straw to break the back of Naughty Dog's AAA linear game design camel for me.
It's almost impossible to do a personality-driven version of the Try Guys that isn't just the Try Guys. And I think that Ned's solution to that might be trying to appeal to dudes. I don't know. The first two Attempt Man videos are about fighter jets and wrestling, which are about as stereotypically bro-y as it gets.
Just very douchebaggy,
I guess.
Which, in fairness, I did say the male audience was probably the best path forward for him, but it's still a bad one. Like, I don't know. I've always felt that he was the most frat bro-y of the Try Guys.
I don't think Ned's gonna have a girl just because he's just so aggressive. I think all of his sperm have Y chromosomes.
But, like, does this...
I got more followers than you. More followers than you.
Strike you as something the boys are gonna get together to watch? Also, his podcast seems to me like it's aimed at women. I mean, most of his guests have been women, including a Real Housewife, Oprah's book club bestseller, and multiple videos about infidelity from the perspective of women.
But now that I'm away from the marriage and divorce, I don't know that I ever could have forgotten it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, because it's such a betrayal.
So who's going from that to fighter jets? You know? And at least when the Try Guys do bro-y stuff, there's a layer of irony from the fact that the other three founders don't subscribe to traditional masculinity and will in fact mock it.
Do you feel manly when you're grilling?
I guess I don't really think about feeling manly almost ever.
Progressive ideals, and specifically like a specific lens on masculinity, specifically non-toxic masculinity, has always been at the core of what we do, and hopefully that is felt throughout the things we do, even if they're not explicitly about that.
And that's not mentioning the fact that he allegedly fabricated the results of a video in order to appear more masculine than the other founders.
We measured our sperm count and testosterone levels, and this was back when we were at BuzzFeed. We had no one
We were the only people checking our work. And I'm not gonna point fingers. I'm not gonna say who, but somebody was the last person to edit that video and put in some numbers at the end and then hit publish at 1 in the morning. And as a result, that now is the record forever.
So with just Ned trying to bro it out, that irony won't be there.
I gotta commit. All right, let's do this.
I mean, if we're being honest, the solution here was for Ned to pull a Shane Dawson and reinvent himself within an entirely new genre of videos. Like, with all that you could say about Shane, he did go from being at the top of sketch comedy to IRL vlogging, tripod at home vlogging, podcasting, conspiracy theories, documentaries, beauty, and food. I mean, that's what an actual content strategist can do, but for Ned, doing the same thing, but worse. I don't see the point. And then from a PR perspective, man, what is he thinking? I don't know. He still refuses to acknowledge Zach, Keith, or Eugene in his various apology videos.
I betrayed my spouse, coworkers, friends, family, and I betrayed you.
Yet he turns around and tries to impede on their market.
A former collaborator of ours has decided it's time to now do a rebrand or a relaunch on YouTube. And you know what? I've decided I'm fine with it.
But the things they're making is like really similar to what we do.
I mean, I guess that makes sense though, right? Like we used to make things together, so.
Don't you think it's gonna threaten us on YouTube to have more competition?
Only in the same way that every video posted on YouTube is technically competition.
It just more easily cements him as the primary antagonist to the Try Guy brand.
They're not that bad.
Not that
How
bad.
can you say that? After every
serious?
Guys, we are unbothered and in fact, fully supportive of the relaunch of BuzzFeed Video.
Oh.
That's what you guys were talking about, right?
Which you shouldn't want in his shoes. He should be doing everything possible to not invite attention from that audience, but instead he seems to think there's some scenario where he siphons a quarter of the viewers over, because otherwise, I have no idea what he's thinking with this. And before you ask, yes, the presentation, editing, and hosting all scream Try Guys to me. Like, these videos just feel like the other 3 founders were edited out of the video.
Can my body survive fighter jet G-forces? Let's find out. Okay. Yeah, baby. Pull up. Pull up.
And then his supplementary content is just as derivative. I mean, there's a blind dating format he ripped off from I don't even know how many sources.
This one bachelorette is going to blind date 5 single guys looking for love.
Which again, interesting choice, because after the whole scandal, shouldn't he be trying to distance himself from seeming like some kind of authority on relationships? And I guess a swing at Good Mythical Morning / Keith Eats the Menu.
Which country has the best noodles? Join me on a culinary adventure around the world. I mean, Los Angeles.
And so yeah, unless we're chalking this up to a combination of denial or ego, I don't know what he's thinking. He's trying to split his focus between growing 2 brands instead of hyper-fixating on one until it gains the traction to promote the other, like the Try Guys did.
And we are in to Try Every Day, the new channel. First really new channel we've launched in a long time. Years. We don't launch channels very often.
He's not doing anything to distinguish the new videos from his past content within a format that, first, has been well explored at this point, but also has a definitive counterpart. The Try Guys expanding their cast to such a large and diverse one filled the main gap the group had, in my opinion. Like, to me, the videos always felt like Ned, Zach, and Keith had a lot of overlap as everyman white dudes. Only Ned would lean more into a fratty vibe, while the other 2 were more adorkable. And then Eugene was there as the cool one who was effortlessly good at everything, not to mention the perspective of being a queer Asian man that he leaned on more as time went on. Like, the Try Guys series in its current form can actually act as an introductory level of research for most people in most hobbies. Think about it. You can more easily find a member you relate to and see how they experience this thing you're considering and make that your jumping off point. Meanwhile, to match all of that value, we're getting Ned, the one famous for never having a standalone image. And what's crazier is, I haven't even gotten to the part of this that a lot of people are here for, which is Ned's latest attempt at responding to all of this.
Hello. I've heard a lot of the commentary and reactions to my podcast episode with Ariel, and I wanted to take this video to address some of them.
Now, right away, before we even touch the content of his statement, I want to make one thing clear. it was dumb for Ned to do this. Releasing another response video, that is. Because there was no winning scenario. Ned already tried to apologize in his podcast's pilot, but ruined it with his handling of the subject matter. Not that I think there was any scenario where he was forgiven. But when it comes to YouTubers responding to controversies, that's kind of supposed to be a last resort in a way. What I mean is a response video is going to have a goal, right? Forgiveness, debunking, clarifying. But in reality, there's only one goal that it's guaranteed to achieve. Calling attention to, well, whatever the hell you're responding to.
The only thing I've ever groomed is my 2 Persian cats. I'm not a groomer. I'm just a loser.
So if you're going to make a statement to put a controversy behind you, you would either better knock it out of the park on your first try, or accept the damage is done and move on. It's an example I use a lot, but just take Nick is Not Green. When his audience grew dissatisfied with parts of how he was utilizing his platform regarding the Super Mega situation, he made like 5 responses that all contradicted the last in some way.
This is the 5th time I've responded to this, and every single time before this, I have done or said things that have made my actions even more harmful.
So 1, it ensured that ignoring it and moving on would no longer be an option. Not that I'm saying that would have been morally correct, but 2, it made it so by the time he did get to what I do believe to be a more genuine reflection of his behavior,
it took way too long for me to realize that not only was I wrong about the way that I have used my platform over the past few months, but a lot of the people who I shat on, who made content about me, were actually right.
A lot of people were just jaded and didn't know if they could believe that this was sincere or if it was just a PR move after exercising every other option. Like in Ned's case, the people who hate him, hate him. They're not changing their minds 3 years later thanks to a very underwhelming comeback. So I don't get what upside he thinks there is to doing this. Just move on, ignore everyone until they do too, and then you'll have the opportunity to attract new viewers. And I know the answer some might say is he's doing this for, well, the reason I'm proving right now. It gets him attention and no bad publicity, right? And hell, if you really want to be cynical here, it's worth pointing out that while the first response was at the start of the podcast episode with Ariel on the Rock Bottom channel, this statement is on his personal Ned Fulmer channel. Now, I can't speak to intention because I don't read minds, but objectively speaking, since he gets more views every time he acknowledges this situation, and he's now acknowledged it once on each channel, isn't it possible that he thought that this would result in the Ned Fulmer channel getting a similar surge in views to the Rock Bottom channel at its relaunch? But the issue is, that technique is a very hard one to pull off. Leveraging negative publicity enough to launch a meaningful career generally requires years of commitment to accepting the role as the villain like a Logan Paul or Trisha Paytas. For everything you can say about Ned, again, I am giving his character more credit than that. I don't see him openly embracing a villain role with his kids out there. I mean, sure, he'll joke about it.
So just looking at me, you think I'm a good guy or a bad guy?
You start out as a good guy usually, and then as you learn, you morph into a more villainous character.
No.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
But even that relates more to how he's perceived rather than actually wanting to fill those boots. And just looking at this channel, the radical variation in his views just signals that what's happening is basically that SpongeBob episode, where the angry mob shows up, dismantles what they can, and then instantly moves on. And not for nothing, but people clicking a video only to immediately dislike and go away, that's not helping the algorithm to think that your content is good enough to show to others. Also, this dude just does not understand optics. Oh my god. See, he suddenly revealed a chronic illness that he's been dealing with for over a decade.
Really important to me because I actually have MS. I've been living with it since 2013. It's relapsing, remitting MS.
Now, I can't speak to intention, but I can speak to reception. It came across as weird. All those Try Guy years where you plastered your family everywhere while Zach is consistently talking about his chronic pain and autoimmune disease.
Basically, my body attacks the ligaments in between my bones. Then the body goes, ooh, I know, I can fix that. I'll put bone there. But bone is not supposed to grow where bone isn't. So I have bone growing where there shouldn't be bone. That causes a lot of inflammation. That causes a lot of pain.
And Ned just kept this a secret until he tries multiple times to get everyone to forgive him, and then he suddenly puts this out. Suffice to say, it came across to a lot of people as Ned trying to fish for sympathy. Now, I'm not saying that's what he did, but I am saying he kinda should have known that the timing would lead to that reaction. But fine, let's get into the statement itself because, hey, maybe I'll be wrong, right? So let's let Ned speak for himself.
That episode with Ariel was mostly about her story, and now in this video, I'll tell a little bit more of mine. There's a lot that we wanted to keep private, but some things I'll touch on today.
Now, personally, not a good start to say, we wanted to keep things private, but I guess I just have to share more when no one is making him do this. Anyway, Ned once again touches upon his podcast episode with Ariel being the only way they could move forward.
It felt like a necessary step to be able to move forward. We knew we would always get these sort of questions in any context online, and it felt like the only way to move forward was just to face it head on.
But the asterisk he leaves out is that's only true if he insists on being a public figure. Like, they talked about how the scandal was affecting their personal lives, especially when it came to making friends.
And I don't want to like walk up to somebody that I want to be friends with at like preschool and have to start every conversation with like, my personal life is a dumpster fire, as I'm sure you know, but also, do you want to be friends with me?
So yeah, putting out an FAQ to close the book on this actually does make sense to me when your scandal was a national headline. Problem is, it easily could, and I think should, have been Ned's farewell to the internet. Literally, do this exact same setup to give a statement co-signed by Ariel stating you're not together and then retire as a creator. Making content out of the current state of their relationship is, well, just for views, which even he admits.
Launching the podcast with a conversation with Ariel was Ariel's idea. She's a stakeholder in the Rock Bottom podcast and this new channel, and she wants it to be successful. So that was part of the reason why, in terms of having that conversation, we did it together rather than on any other platform. We knew it would draw a lot of attention.
Which, side note, the media ethics nerd inside of me is screaming. You had on a guest that has a direct financial interest in the show and didn't disclose that? Like, I honestly assumed Ariel's motivation was so her kids could hopefully grow up to be proud of their father's career. Like, you don't want the father of your kids to be floundering in front of the world nonstop, right? And Ariel's motivation for doing the podcast episode has been a strong point of conversation online. So the added conflict of interest should absolutely have been made clear. For context, that ad read I did at the beginning, if I did not make it abundantly clear that I was paid to do that, that would be illegal. I could get in a lot of trouble. Because a viewer not knowing the financial incentive behind a piece of media can easily lead to widespread deception. And Ned, as the media guy in their relationship, should have known better. Though I guess if he understood how to ethically run a production company, we wouldn't be here.
Leaves you with the world's worst
I don't like this at all.
He then does this weird dance where, again, he's trying to seem like he's taking accountability, but he also wants to claim that he's being taken out of context.
I know that some of you have only seen 15-second clips of me putting my foot in my mouth, but I hope for those that watch the full hour that you took something away from it. You know, any clip that you see on TikTok is just one small snippet of an hour-long conversation of 3 years of trying to work through this.
Yeah, we're gonna put aside just how condescending he is, but like, again, it's such a muddy and confusing message. Why not tell us what your goal was for that conversation instead of saying we should have taken something from it? Oh, it's because his primary motivation was views, as he's already admitted, but constantly admitting that won't go over well, huh? Now, there's one really important thing to note about this whole thing before we go further. The issue here is that so much of Ned's brand up until the scandal involved him being a good person, which, as I've been saying for years, is not a good idea for creators. Sure, you don't want to be destructive, but if a goal of your content is to make you look good, rather than showcasing the ideas or experiences featured, it makes people take your words and actions much more personally. So if you're trying to be seen as a good person, why would you say this?
After Discovery, I started an intensive program of therapy, group therapy, and work to really try to understand what I had done, why I had done it, and what it meant for my relationship and my life. This involved a lot of facing rationalizations, denials, minimizations, all of these mental clouds that help you continue behavior that you know is hurtful and you still do it anyways. So it let me face the truth and acknowledge in no uncertain terms that I cheated on my wife with an employee of my business, and it caused her immense pain and shattered our marriage.
Oh, wait, I know why. YouTuber apologies will often detail their experiences with therapy to address whatever issues led to their behavior. Two things. One, doing it of your own volition before things come out is very different in my opinion than only doing so once said issues affect your career. Two, why would you admit to it taking you this much to come to terms with what you did wrong? No joke, the top comment on this video is, "Man really needed a year of therapy to learn that cheating is bad." This is especially bad when this exact kind of language led to one of the most infamous moments of the podcast episode.
You knew exactly who it was and what had happened. Yeah, then you were like, take me back to the airport.
Yeah.
That part was very cinematic. If you were trying to be like in a movie.
Turn this fucking car around.
Everything changed for me as well. I'm like I've been hurting this person that I love this whole time.
You didn't realize until then?
Well, you know, but then there's other things you tell yourself to kind of sort of compartmentalize, or I guess.
Interesting.
In my opinion, the better way to try to recontextualize his actions in hindsight would have been saying something like, "I knew how much I messed up, but I convinced myself if I kept it going long enough, I could figure out a way to resolve this without all of the pain I caused." But, and this is where you get to use therapeutic language to your advantage, looking back, I realized it was my own arrogance in trying to avoid the problem that led to my cowardly handling of this. I just don't understand this weird back and forth between Ned trying to own his actions and distance himself from them. It's such an unclear message that just leaves gaping holes that the internet is more than willing to fill. Wait. Though Ned goes on to address the actions he took to try and repair the relationship.
In terms of my relationship with Ariel, it started as a therapeutic separation. And then from there, I prepared a disclosure document that answered all of her questions and volunteered for a lie detector test.
At which point he attempts to address the audience more directly in an interesting way.
I understand that if you, a viewer, is watching this for the first time or just sees this 15-second clip on TikTok, you don't understand everything that has led us to this point. And I know that it'll take time. And if you want to just judge me off of one clip of me talking about society, which obviously was not the best response to that situation, you know, you are welcome to do that. I know that people have a choice when it comes to what they watch and what they consume. And if people don't want to continue engaging with me on the internet, then that's a consequence of my actions and something that I have accepted.
Which, that last part I'll hit on in a moment, because Yeah, I just don't believe him when he says that. Though he also acknowledges the plan for his content going forward.
And so that will be on the Rock Bottom channel, and on this channel, it'll be more entertainment forward. I know people are saying that it's similar to some of the stuff I did before with BuzzFeed and Try Guys, and that's true. It's the DNA of stuff that I love making.
And so yeah, the statement's not one that I can see particularly easing his woes. That is to say, it doesn't actually even try to accomplish really anything. It responds to the criticism of him copying the Try Guys with a shrug, and it responds to criticisms of his podcast episode by insisting those were mainly taken out of context, by basically further confirming the issues people had with the podcast episode.
After Discovery, I started an intensive program of therapy, group therapy, and work to really try to understand what I had done, why I had done it, and what it meant for my relationship and my life.
That's cool, man. I'm not your therapist, but I feel like the reason you did what you did is because it's something you wanted to do. In the podcast and in here too, he keeps making it seem as though he didn't know that this would be painful for his wife to be f***ing one of his employees, which I think is so odd, especially the way he presents that.
And then personally, it still stands out to me as weird that he seems like almost afraid to refer to the other three founders. I mean, look, I get it. NDAs were signed, they clearly ended on a bad note. I'm not expecting him to love the people who, technically speaking, made the decision to end his career. But man, the lengths he goes to avoid acknowledging their existence is just off-putting to me if he's so determined to make right by those he's wronged. Hating them doesn't change the fact that those three were affected more than almost anyone else. In fact, they were the ones who ultimately had to shoulder the financial burden of the scandal.
There are several videos that we've deemed as fully unreleasable. You will never see them, and that is due to his involvement. And that's a decision that has cost us lots of money. We will not be able to recoup that money, but it's a decision we stand by proudly.
You're seeing us at a nexus point. We're in between. Believe it or not, we're still recovering and getting our footing from what happened. Our content, the reverberations of the change and the way that we were thrown off course are still felt in our content, and we're now getting our footing back and kind of getting back to what we want to do.
Not to mention Eugene having to dedicate almost 2 additional years to a company that he was ready to move on from, at least as on-camera talent and day-to-day management.
Right before this all happened, we were trying to look for ways to let Eugene finally work on these projects he hadn't been able to work on. And unfortunately, in late 2022, someone else stepped away. And if he were to step away at that time, it would have been really bad.
And look, personally, there's another part of this that I just find so notable. Bear with me. I personally have production experience outside of this channel. I worked in a professional grade television studio throughout high school, completed 4 internships, have my degree in film, and have worked on all kinds of sets across all kinds of budgets and crew positions. And I love doing YouTube. But as someone whose specialty is media production, like Ned, do you know what my plan is if this channel goes under? It's to leverage everything I've done to try to find some other job in production. Now, that obviously wouldn't be ideal, but being on-camera talent honestly was never part of my plan. It's just part of the gig. Why do I bring this up? Well, according to Ned, his motivation behind continuing to pursue content creation is not about him. Instead, it's about
values of curiosity and empathy.
Something that I'm passionate about is curiosity and empathy.
With empathy and curiosity and empathy.
Things that make people curious.
A more curious and empathetic world.
Yeah, he repeats those words a lot. Now, sure, I can guarantee Ned enjoys wearing the media personality hat more than I do. Absolutely. But I find it so off-putting that in every version of his plans, he has to be the face of what he's doing. Why not try to work for a Mr. Beast, BuzzFeed, or Dude Perfect? Let's acknowledge again, Ned has an incredibly strong resume. You're telling me no one is willing to work with him behind the scenes? Or hell, if he has to run the show, why not focus on lifting the next generation of YouTubers? You know, like most legacy creators, including the Try Guys, are currently doing, Podcast studios are only growing more popular, and Ned has experience with producing those. Or he can try a phase approach and invest in up-and-coming creators. But why does the company have to have his name? Why does the content need his face? Well, yes, people won't be happy with anything that Ned touches. I can't imagine their reaction would be anywhere near this. Like, he's co-run a production company, has experience with every stage of said productions, had an additional specialty in business admin. Am I missing something? There have to be countless behind the scenes roles where Ned Fulmer, the manager,
approving the removal of Ned as a manager.
Okay, poor choice of words, but you cannot tell me there isn't somewhere that Ned Fulmer can shine with everything but his experience as on-camera talent. But for whatever reason, Ned is not willing to move forward without being the one in front of the camera. And hey, maybe there are reasons for that aren't linked to ego, but you'd have to tell me what those might be because I got nothing. I mean, I get that he's always wanted to be an entertainer.
I moved to Chicago to get involved in the improv and sketch comedy scene there. I just remember really enjoying being on stage and making people laugh.
But dude, that's what happens when you win the lottery only to tear up your ticket instead of cashing it in. That's it. It's over. Put it behind you. Move on. Overall, I'm left thinking that Ned, for all of the lip service he puts towards accountability and consequences, truly cannot wrap his head around how much was lost by his actions. He might truly believe that there is some path that leads to him recapturing a fraction of what was, despite him claiming to accept that it won't happen.
And I sincerely hope that you are connecting with it and resonating with it. And if not, that's okay too. Like I said, it's a consequence of my actions.
But you know what? I think it's important to help small, independent, up-and-coming creators, right? So let's try to be actually helpful and come up with some names that Ned can score collabs with. Because, yeah, he's going to need all the help he can get. Now, first, we want to look outside of his niche so he gains exposure to a new audience. So, video essays. Okay, I think he could score Illuminati. I feel like she has some free time on her hands. And maybe MatPat? I don't know, he seems like a forgiving fellow, so I'm sure the next time he's posting a food theory Ned can pull up.
I'm pumped that you're leaving. I get to be host of Food Theory. Yeah.
There's also a good overlap with Cody Ko, white guys who ruined everything in pursuit of hooking up. I could see it. And lastly, Ned. I am more than willing to extend an olive branch anytime you want to collab. I won't actually show up or anything because I hate what you stand for, but I'm more than happy to waste an afternoon of yours, so looking forward to hearing back.